Motion to accept. Okay, second.
All approved.
All right. All right, last one. June 13th meetings. A regular membership meeting was called to order at 7 p.m. by the president. Mike Lunsford. Meeting location was Lake Wells Fire Department. 4 club members were present with a total of 32 persons in attendance, 6 on Google Meet. Dan Haslam, club vice president, welcomed everyone, led the Pledge of Allegiance, conducted roll call. Old business. An abbreviated version of the treasury report was read by the president, Mike Lunsford. The team report submitted by John Thacker. 6 persons registered for the June testing session, 2 passed extra, 2 passed technician, 2 persons did not show. Testing continues to be temporarily conducted at the Masonic Lodge on Wrecker Highway due to remodeling at the Red Cross. Todd Runnels, KR1W, LWRA president, member of LWRA and president of LART, discussed June field day. Still need evening and overnight operators for several stations as sign-up sheets of interest. New business. LWRA voted unanimously to appoint Mike Lunsford, KB4 FHP, the trustee of the LWRA repeat. For the program, John Sherwood, W4 JFS, gave a presentation on capabilities of APRS and the different ways it can be used for hobby and radio use, radio public service. Meeting adjourned at 8:10 p.m. Motion to accept.
Second.
All right, that's all we got much.
Third. A4TH.
Okay. For June, we started the month at $7,043.36 and ended the month $41.26 richer. That was $24 in dues and interest, and we paid PayPal, so that made the difference. Membership is now is 86 at the time of this report. We had a member reinstate tonight, so we should be at 87 next time I report. We have 1 silent key that I'm counting as a dues paying member. And for the year, I was just taking a look at it. We started at $6,148.64, and now we have $7,267.33. So we are positive right now, $935.90. The VE team has some expense for paper, about $13. I'll write a check for to John for that. But I don't see any more expenses. We're all paid up on our insurance. Our web fees are paid. Our post office box paid. I don't foresee any more expenses for this. We're projecting about 1,000 positive for the club, barring any unforeseen expenses. That's the end of the report.
Yeah. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
For those of you who do not know, we do a regular business meeting like this every 3rd month, and then we have a little mini business meeting and a little mini business meeting next to, because we have longer class or programs that are more educational instead of just having the same old meeting every time. So we have to have one by the bylaws. So this is it. So and then we'll have a short program after that. But anyway, VE, John's not feeling well, so he asked me to give the VE report. We had 2 gentlemen pass our test. 1 did not pass, but he is all gung-ho and will be back. And then we had 1 who, and by the way, he studied the wrong question pool, was the only reason he didn't pass. And then the other is Adam Jeremiah, and he was supposed to be here tonight, passed his technician and general in one fell swoop. So that's good. So, but he's all gung ho, ready to go. So that's a good thing. We did participate in the field day. Thanks for those guys who did operate. I know how many of you operated. I know Dan operated, and Gary operated. Anybody else go over and operate? I attended and had to leave, but it was a good time had by all, but more to come on that at a later date. QRP. Our QRP is coming up at the end of the month. We're going to Fort Meade. And I know Daryl's happy about that, even though he won't say the two words.
I literally like up. Fort Meade is where I get mail from, and I got an extra postmaster.
Okay. We're going to Fort Meade. If you don't know anything about Fort Meade, it's the oldest city in the county. And we're going to hide 4 boxes, 3 on ham, 1 on GMRS. And my intent is and I've mapped this out, they will be quite some distance from the starting point as opposed to the last time. So if you don't have a directional antenna and you want to build one, they're pretty inexpensive to build using a tape measure and some PVC pipe. But we'll be doing that. If you don't have a setup and you want to pair up with somebody when you get there, we'll do that. But the way that this is going to work, because they're so far away, it's going to be somewhat like a scavenger hunt. You're going to have to follow the clues that we give you over the air to get to these points. And then you'll find it. There'll be a token at the thing. And so you'll bring the token back. So when you bring the token back, you'll be the first one to bring a token back, the second one to bring a token back. So don't disclose the location that you found it, because other people are still looking for the boxes. So we want to make it a little bit more intense. When we had it here in Lake Wells last year, everyone had a great time. It did take the full time, the full 3 hours to find them. So it will take the full 3 hours to find. We don't expect you to find. Sorry. Okay. We require. Yeah. Two. So but we'll be doing that down in Fort Meade. So if you don't know how to get to Fort Meade, go to the web page, bring up the flyer. Just beware that they are doing construction on the bridge going over to the park. And thank goodness, because the old bridge was 100 years old. There, it was time to replace that one. It was narrow. It did go underwater in 1960. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So but that's part of what we're going to do down there, and part of what we're going to do with the clues will be history. That will give you some pretty interesting information about Fort Meade and why it was there. Just a little tidbit about that. People used to come from Tampa to shop in Fort Meade. So it's got some. Well, there were 86 stores in Fort Meade at one time. So there's some pretty interesting history on this. So that's what we're going to do with the clues, is give some of the clues as to where you're standing this took place. And then you'll go find them.
Are you saying if you don't live down there, forget about it?
Hey, listen, it must have been illegal when I was born in Bartow Memorial's parking lot, because I got sentenced to 18 years down there. So no, not that I'm aware of. So anyway, that's kind of what we're doing with the QRP. But bring your own drinks, because it will be hot. But the Big Dogs on the Porch Cafe will be in operation, and so we'll have hot dogs and associated condiments to go with that. So that's correct. So as it was said earlier, we did submit the paperwork, and I am now the trustee of the repeaters, and that will allow us to now move to get Echolink back on the air, because that was so that was done. We did have a board meeting tonight. I don't think there was anything significant that we need to report. So we'll do that. Now, as you know, and for some of those that are new, the club started about 3 years ago, something that's our flagship QRP, and it's our main event. It's called Ham and Bean. And so you got the gist of what it is. We start out with ham and we play radio just like we do. And then at noon, we want families to come as well and to see this crazy hobby that we do. And we have a bean related lunch. So usually there's a guy who makes some pretty bad chili that shows up, and then that's not Daryl.
Thanks for your Stop for that.
But I do about 5 gallons of chili. But we have other bean dishes there too, and desserts. So I need some folks to step up and help me coordinate that this year because it's going to be bigger than it's ever been. Always in October, and I know you won't be here. Okay. It's always the last Saturday of the month, and so we'll be setting up to do ham and beans. My proposal is to move it this year to a new location. I want to go to the park that we were at for the APRS, the Simmers Young Park. I think it's a little bit widespread. That was the last. Huh? Yep. It gives us 5 pavilions that we can use, covered pavilions, that a little bit more room, and set up more stations. So I'm checking with the county to see if we can have an open tailgate or like a ham fest.
Get ready to jump.
Get rid of your junk. Yeah.
Don't tell my wife that.
So,
Don't tell my wife.
I'm working on that. So if you're interested in helping with setting that up and coordinating that, please let me know. Is that okay to move it to Summers Park? Well, we've been having it at Winter Haven at Lake Ship Park, but we never make reservations. So it's a hit or miss thing. We've hit it twice in a row, so I figured this might be a bad year. And get there and not have any place to eat. So anyway, new business. As a reminder, we are halfway through the year, so start thinking in the back of your minds about officers because that'll be coming up real quick. And some of us's ticket has run out, so have to have new officers at least for one position. So just remember that. I won't go into that because we talked about that. One of the things before we go to the program real quick, and I know y'all live here and you're in the traffic every day and you understand that. This is the fastest growing county in the United States. You were not aware of. How many hams do you think are licensed to live in Polk County currently? Somebody want to throw a number out there? Oh,
Yeah. 2,000?
close. There are over 1,500 licensed hams in Polk County. We've got in both clubs less than 100. So we're missing the mark somewhere. So we need to come up with some ways to attract people to the clubs, to the organization and their events, specifically this one. So that's one of the things that I wanted to target is how the club can do that. How can, if anybody's got any ideas, we talked about at the board about exposing at some of the community events like they have Founders Day here in Lake Wells. They have things in Haines City. They have things in Winter Haven first Friday or first Saturday, whatever they are. That's kind of, we wanted to do that, but it will take participation. We've talked about participation in parades before as being their safety. They're not enforcing anything, but being their corner guard. There's 3 corner guards. So we can relay if there's a problem during a parade route. Some ham clubs do that. It's just a good community thing. 5K races or another. So if you've got any contact in the community that we can expose the club's name as being a club. That's what we're looking for. 57 people in Mulberry are licensed fans. You know, 63 hams in Lake Wales. And how many of us live in Lake Wales here? So we're not reaching that community. We're not being able to get out. Yeah. Well, we had talked about that, and that was actually a positive way of doing it. Is maybe go to the general areas, the Haines City, Winter Haven, Lake Wales, Fort Meade, Frostproof, this side of the county type thing, and get some of those and mail a couple of hundred letters.
Is there a way to export?
Yep, and do it by zip code.
I have a feeling. Like, oh, like, I didn't do it. Like, oh.
Well, I mean, you would be the perfect person to ask. If Gary brought this up. Would you have been receptive to a personalized letter?
I was pretty excited. Every so often I would see like what is it?
Okay, so that's a viable thing.
I don't think study the waters here, but maybe a social media outreach might get more people that.
I 100% agree, but as you know, I'm not the guy to go to that meeting. But we'd have to have somebody to step up and say, hey, I want to be the social media guy.
Mike, if you thought about, public service radio, they usually do free announcements, stuff like that. Probably
Yeah,
Hamilton at 8 will send out a crew and be
well, and
personal.
that may be something we can invite the media to is our QRP down at the
Charlie Belcher on 13th.
yeah.
As a matter of fact, W4WN is a hand over here. Warren Ellie got him in the hand rating. It was W1GUD, Alec Key now. Oh, Lloyd Sowers.
Lloyd Sowers is
Yes.
a ham.
W4WON. Heard him on guitar machine during when I was over in Tampa during the
I didn't
men's
know
and man's
Lloyd Sowers. I
conference.
know Lloyd Sowers.
Well, of course, Lloyd.
Yeah.
He is a ham.
Yeah.
He might be willing to come over and
Okay, and Lake Wells has a media guy now who used to be on channel for a long time. So
just my thought. Money wise, our anniversaries went to
right.
possible failure. What is Eric post? First, radio, whatever. You want the big food, tailgate, everything else. Happen. Oh, honey,
Yeah.
but I think, you know,
Well, we've got a new 50th anniversary logo too. Yeah, that's the new 50th anniversary logo.
Next door, and it's got food. Hey. And however,
We're radioactive. And if y'all didn't see my letter or my thing this week, that Monday message, I actually got in a conversation with folks in Nashville about that, and they were amazed that our QRP was our premier attended event. And I said, well, it's because people get to touch stuff, get to put their hands on it.
Is anybody reading the website version of that? I post that as soon as I get it from
Yeah.
you usually. And I posted your blog on the website. Anybody read that?
I check it, yeah.
I see it there, but I always.
Yeah, I
Email
figured
first.
probably get the email first, because usually it's when I get it, and then if I have a chance, I go ahead and post it in, or it's that evening.
And thanks to Mr. Hugh back there for commenting on it the other night, because I tell you, you get discouraged about it because nobody ever says anything
I wondered if
other than one person who will remain nameless always sends me an email with the grammatical error.
Well, me,
I don't care. I used to have a tag on my byline whenever I worked for the county when I would send a blast email out. This was typed with my thumbs. Grammatical errors are accepted. Hey,
but is that a useful feature to keep doing?
yes, I think a lot of people
I'm
look
sure.
at. We've
I
had a
figured they
couple
might
people
go
look
back
at
and see the previous blog.
So
It's a good place to archive it. That's website. They see the weekly blog, and it shows the last three. You click on it. Oh, I keep doing it.
all right, so that's all I got. So Dan,
Time. Don't make it. All right.
Did I ask one question? You guys said there was the silent Q with that.
Alabama.
Do you guys remember Bill Johnson?
yes,
He passed away.
I did.
He was a ham for a while. It took me years to get him to become one. He wasn't very active, but he just passed away. He was a great friend and like.
I like Mr. Johnson. If you were in downtown Lake Wales, you knew Mr. Johnson was at the store because the speaker was playing music.
We'll continue on our rounding and bonding. This one here is 24 minutes. This weekend. There's a 9-minute one, but I'll save that for next time. There's 4 in the series. I think you'll find this one kind of a little more interesting. That's all. Third one is awesome. I don't know what's going on this one.
Okay, I'm Ward Silver in 0AX, and this is part 2 of
Yep.
grounding and bonding for home and mobile
Google.
HS stations. Part 2 is about lightning protection. Oh boy. Okay, here we've got lightning. It comes from way up in the sky, or it's trying to get way up in the sky. You can't really steer it. There's just too much energy and voltage there for you to actually direct lightning. But you can help Mr. Lightning make good decisions. So that's what we're about in this protection. Oh boy. Okay, here we've got lightning. It comes from way up in the sky, or it's trying to get way up in the sky. You can't really steer it. There's just too much energy and voltage there for you to actually direct lightning. But you can help Mr. Lightning make good decisions. So that's what we're about in this presentation, is how to help lightning go to where you want it to go on its own without trying to overpower it. What does Mr. Lightning want? Heavy direct paths to the earth in order to dissipate charge in the ground. And basically all you're trying to do is help lightning neutralize a charge imbalance, which can be millions of volts for a short period of time. And then when lightning starts to flow, all of what's happening is just charge, excess charge that's down here or up here, is going to rebalance itself. That's what lightning is. So why not help it do that in a way that's not destructive to your home or your station? So when you're doing this to help Mr. Lightning get to the ground with this heavy direct path, you want to worry mostly about inductance. Why? Well, if you look at the equation for voltage across an inductance, when current flows through it, voltage is directly proportional to how much inductance there is, sure, but it's also directly proportional to how much current is changing per unit of time. So delta I, the change in I, divided by delta T, the change in time. And lightning pulses are measured in kiloamps per microsecond. And it doesn't take very many nanohenries when multiplied by kiloamps per microsecond to come up with a lot of volts. For example, if you get a decent size lightning strike with a kiloamp per microsecond, and you run it through a 1 foot piece of number 12 wire, which has about 330 nanohenries, you'll get 700 plus volts from end to end of that piece of wire. 1 foot of wire, not connected to anything. If it has a 1 kiloamp per microsecond surge flowing through it, you'll get 760 something volts. So that's a lot of volts just from the inductance through a straight piece of wire. So inductance is more important than resistance when we're talking about lightning protection. Another thing that's important is all paths by which you want lightning current or surge current that's induced from a nearby strike, all of those paths through which current is going to flow should be outside the residence, outside the building, whatever the building is. Make that path outside. Don't make it easy for lightning to go through your station on its way to the earth. It will happily go through your station and cause a lot of damage, but don't run lightning conductors through your attic, through your crawl space, through your basement, through your house. No, 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 no. All of those should be outside, even if they don't look all that great on the side of the house or whatever. Make sure the lightning on its way to the earth goes outside the house. Okay, so how do we help lightning do that? Well, the first thing we want is a single point ground panel. Typically, this is an entry point where your feed lines come into the building. It's nothing more than a big metal panel. You can see that here. That's this big gray box here. And it's typically mounted outside on the foundation or near the foundation or maybe just inside the building. All of your protective devices are attached firmly to this panel. That includes all of the regular lightning arresters that we know and love. You can have lightning arresters for your rotator or control lines that go out to the antenna system. Every one of your data services, telephones, cable TVs, whatever, they will all have some kind of a protective device. If that protective device is not inside whatever box that they provide, it must be mounted on this panel. So here's your data or phone line service. Each service will have a ground connection. They're all required to have some kind of a ground connection, maybe to a ground rod or something like that. So go ahead and make sure that all of those ground rods are connected together. It helps if they're all close together, and best practice for new construction now is for all of these services to come where your circuit breaker box is. So you get your AC service, you get your data, your TV, all this kind of stuff right together so they all bond to this one big point. Now, unfortunately, that seems to be on the other side of the house for most ham stations. But if you can, run your feed lines in somewhere close by. And so down here at the bottom, you can see this big connection here. This is what's called a perimeter or lightning ground system. And this runs all the way around your building if you can, with ground rods every so often. And everything that goes into and out of the house gets protected and it gets connected to this ground system. And then there's also a connection to your station ground bus. I want you to note that this is divided into protected and unprotected zones. When you run your cables to the SPGP, the single point ground panel, you want to keep all of your unprotected stuff together. And then you want to keep all of your protected stuff together and away from the unprotected stuff. Okay, Mr. Lightning will gradually and not gradually, will happily jump from your unprotected to your protected stuff if you bundle all that stuff together. It looks better all bundled together, but it's not a wise move. You want the protected stuff and the unprotected stuff to be different. Notice also I've got an AC power protector on here. This is called a protected line duplex outlet. All it is a metal box with AC power sockets on it, and this is mounted on the panel, and that runs to the AC branch circuit that supplies your station, and then you plug your AC station power into it. Now you can either run a separate circuit from this power protector, or you can run extension cords or whatever you want to do. But the idea is so that all of your arresters are all on this one panel outside the house, so that when they fire, because there's a transient from lightning or whatever, they all fire together and everything goes up and down at the same time. So you don't have one firing and then a little bit later another one fires. You don't want ever to have voltage differences between point A and B just because of timing. So when they're all on the panel together, they all go up and down together. So you want to mount everything on one panel, and including your AC power protector, and that all supplies your shack with feed lines, control lines, and AC power. Here's some examples. This is an AC line surge protector. It's made by Triplite, and these are isobar transient protectors. This one has 4 outlets, not just 2. Some of them have also a little green light that will tell you that it's still working. They have on and off switches. They look like an extension cord. What's inside here are protective components. Get the one that has the most energy you can afford, typically up to about 6,000 joules of energy. And these things are not expensive, 40, 50 bucks, something like that. And they can mount right on your SPGP. These are the feed line lightning arresters that have been around for a long time. These are from Polyphaser. You can get them from Alpha, Delta, DX Engineering, all these different places. You buy them. There's a low power version, there's a high power version, and they're rated that way for the voltage that they have to let pass through without firing. They also have a DC isolated version that has a series capacitor that passes RF just fine, but it blocks DC. And it's in there so that the voltage in the line will go up faster and cause the little protective devices in there, gas discharge tubes, to fire more quickly. But if you do have that capacitor, you can't pass bias voltage or switch control voltages out to your antenna system. This is a typical multi-line protector that would be used on telephones or data services or that kind of thing. You can see some little gas discharge tubes in here. These are MOVs, metal oxide varistors. These are transorbs, which are basically heavy Zener diodes. And so they protect each line, they clamp the voltage to a safe value. These are typical of what you mount on your SPGP. Okay, so it bonds all of the entry paths from all of the services that come into the building, and it's connected to perimeter ground so that everything goes up and down together. They all fire at the same time, and that minimizes voltage differences between the systems due to transient timing. I'm going to reiterate, it includes all the non-RF stuff that you have for telephones and things like that, and AC power. And remember to keep your protected and unprotected cables separated. Here's some examples. This is K4RO's single point ground panel. His station is right above this. This is in his garage, which is a first floor of the house, and then his station is upstairs. So he lives on a hilltop outside Nashville, and he was losing a lot of equipment due to lightning strikes, and he got tired of that. So he got a big piece of aluminum and bolted it to the cinder block wall. You can see it back here. This is all one big piece of aluminum, and he bolted everything, and I mean everything, associated with his antenna system. That means filters, it means directional couplers. Here's a stack match switch over here. All of this stuff is bolted firmly to this big panel of aluminum. And then this big panel is connected with this big piece of wire here to his outside ground system. And that ties everything together. And so when the lightning comes along, whether it hits something actually connected to the station or whether it hits a tree nearby or whatever, everything goes up and down together. You know how much equipment he's lost since he put this in a few years ago? Zero. He's lost 0 pieces of equipment. So he's a happy guy. That's how you do it. Here's in my station. What I use as a single point ground panel is this metal rack. I have a station with 2 operating positions. You can see them on the left and the right. And everything associated with the antenna system outside the radios is placed in this metal rack. And you can see some switches down here, some little remote coax switches, 2 amplifiers, my rotator control boxes, that kind of stuff. Here you can see my isobar PLDO down here. It's all mounted on the metal of the rack. It doesn't have to be a single panel. On the very back of the rack, you can see these metal panels here. This is my remote access power switching right here. Got a couple of relays for the amplifiers. And down here is some more protective stuff. This is a dual line antenna protector. You can see these panels are additionally tied together with number 6 AWG. And here's one of the wires that goes over to the ground system of that operating position A. There's another one down here. And then you can see this big wire here goes to that perimeter ground system, which is just outside the wall a few feet away. Okay, so outside your building, you must, as in the NEC says, shall, and there's not much wiggle room in shall. That's a special word in requirements and legalese that means you gotta do it. You shall bond all earth connections together. That's required. So you don't want a separate ground system over here, a ground rod over here for your AC, another one for the telephone, another one for cable TV, and oh yeah, here's one for the antenna up on top of the house. If you just put in separate ground rods, yeah, they're all connected to the earth, but what are they connected together with? Dirt. Okay, what is the resistance of dirt? It's a lot, okay? So if you took a voltmeter and you measured the resistance between one ground rod and another, you might measure 10 ohms, 25 ohms, 50 ohms. What if you did have 10 ohms and a lightning surge of 1,000 amps flowed through that dirt between the ground rods? How much voltage would there be between those ground rods? Well, 10 ohms times 1,000 amps, that's 10,000 volts. So this is when you start hearing stories like, well, I was minding my own business. There was a thunderstorm outside. So I was sitting in my living room and all of a sudden there was a big flash outside and then this big green arc jumped from my computer over to my home entertainment system and now nothing works anymore. Okay, what happened was maybe those were both grounded, but they weren't tied together. They were not bonded together. So one went up and the other did not. And to equalize that voltage difference, an arc developed. And that's very destructive. So you shall bond everything together outside. Make that ground system go all the way around the house if you can. If you can't, driveways and things get in the way, make it go around as much as you can. And you tie everything together with number 6 or whatever your building code requires you to do. Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the you-know-what to start out with, but it's not that bad, and it's really good stuff. It's cheap insurance for helping everything stay at the same voltage. Okay, All right, don't create low impedance paths through your station. Why is that? Okay, here comes Mr. Lightning. Mr. Lightning hits this thing, what we call an antenna lightning attractor. Okay, well, maybe it hits the tower, maybe it hits something close by. You get a lot of voltage in this system here. Here comes the current, flows along your feed lines. Here's that nice panel that you've got, and it's even grounded, okay? But it's not bonded together here. What's that current going to do? Just like any other current, whatever the impedance of the paths available to it are, it's going to divide accordingly. And if there's a great little path that goes through your radios and over to your AC service entry and down to that ground rod, it's going to go there. Well, maybe your radios don't work anymore. Okay, so don't give lightning a path through your station. Here's what you need to do. Here's your perimeter ground system. Everything's bonded together. Here come your feed lines. Here's your nice protected panel. You've got your AC service. It's tied to the ground system also. Here comes a branch circuit. The branch circuit isn't protected yet. It hasn't gone through your PLDO. So it comes all the way over to your panel. There's the SPGP with the protectors. And then the protected AC goes back to your radios. So here comes the lightning. Let's say the lightning hits the power lines. Very common occurrence. Comes down to your AC service, says, wow, there's a nice big ground rod outside here. Yeah, there's a path over here, but when it gets to this point, it's got an even better connection down to the ground system here. So give lightning what it wants, a direct path to the earth. This is the big one right here, out to your ground system through the ground rods and everything else. Anything that leaks into the building, give it a path to go to the ground as quickly as you can and avoid having it go through your radio room. All right, how do you protect a tower? Here we're looking right down on one of the typical triangular lattice towers. It's mounted in a concrete base, and the drawing in the handbook for years and years has been you make one ground rod for each leg, and you tie those together with a heavy ground ring of wire. That's great. That's a good ground system. But as long as you got the guy with the backhoe out there, why don't you have him do about a 30-foot shallow trench in your yard? Don't worry, it'll all come back, grow right over it, and lay down some more heavy wire and some more ground rods. These 30 feet or more long radial wires that are buried in the earth with additional ground rods are terrific, and they help make sure that lightning, if it does hit the tower or is nearby, that direct heavy path is right there, and as little as possible comes in on any feed lines. Speaking of feed lines, here they are on your tower. Every 50 feet, bond the feed lines to the tower because of the inductance and resistance of the tower. If you get a good size lightning strike on your tower, you can easily have 100,000 volts between the top and the bottom of the tower just because of inductance. So I don't know too many coaxial cables whose jackets are rated for 100,000 volts. So what'll happen is if they're not bonded to the tower, it will arc through the jacket and it will either blow the cable up or it will split the jacket or cause pinholes. And what happens then? Water gets in. And water getting into a coaxial cable is a bad thing. It causes that jacket to become lossy, and pretty soon you got problems in your antenna system. So make sure you bond the feed lines to the tower. Yes, you have to put more connectors on and all that kind of stuff, and use one of these snazzy brackets that allows you to bolt it right to the table leg. If you've got an insulated base tower, make a spark gap. There's plenty of examples of spark gaps in the grounding and bonding book, or you can find them online. They're pretty easy to make. All you got to really do is have two wires close together and a couple of millimeters apart, just like gapping a spark plug for those of us who've been around for a while and put in our own spark plugs in an engine. Here's a single point ground panel at a tower base. This is one of my towers in Missouri. I live where I can put up a station on a ridge and yeah, it gets hit by lightning occasionally. So I have to have one of these ground panels at the base of each tower. Here comes my my rotator control cable. Yeah, this looks funny. I'm going to save you some money here. You can use irrigation system cable for these long runs of buried rotator control cable. This is a 10 conductor number 18 solid wire direct burial rated cable, and it's a lot cheaper than the specialty rotator cables because you can buy it by the 10 jillion feet for irrigation systems. Double up a couple of these pairs for your solenoid circuits, the pins 1 and pins 2. And those will make an equivalent to number 16. And then you use a terminal strip here. And then when it goes up the tower, you can use the specialty rotator cable. That's what it's for. These are gas discharge tubes, and I buy them in bulk from Mauser Electronics. These are 75-volt tubes, and I just have a nice heavy piece of aluminum flashing mounted inside an electrical box, and I use a sheet metal screw and tie each one of these terminal strips to a sheet metal screw with a gas discharge tube. Here's an RCS4L. That's a remote 4-position coax switch. It has gas discharge tubes inside it. You can see the big hard line going to my station in one side and 3 of the antenna connections that are used on the right. And you can also see this big heavy ground wire that goes to the local ground. I have one of these at each tower base. It's not that hard to make, was not that expensive. Let's go get these articles by Ron Block and QST. And what he talks about is creating a protected zone. Everything that you want to protect from lightning in your house needs to go in one of these protected zones. So you get a piece of paper and you write down everything that's in that protected zone, and then you look for every wire that connects them together or crosses the boundary of that zone, like your cable TV cable, your 120-volt wires, all that kind of stuff. Every one of these connections that goes across the boundary has to be protected. If you don't protect them all, lightning will get in through one, and it can be just as bad with one as 10. So then you want to bond all the equipment together within the zone. So whether that's in your station or in your living room, bonding is just as important there as it is in the ham station. Okay, so that's the end of part 2 about lightning protection. And then part 3 will be about RF management. Okay.
I just put these 2 guys right here on the spot.
The reason I brought that, I want to bring grounding and bonding, because that's a real hot button. That's a real hot button. I'm still talking.
You can just close the lid on that, Dan.
It's a big hot button for me, and I've been doing communication work for a long time. Like myself, my station is here. My bonding grounds are way over on the other side of the house. There's 100 feet of number 8 wire. That's $250. I gotta come up with it. It's really important that you do ground your station, and if you can't, get something in the ground so you know you got at least grounded. And I really say that explicitly because I don't want to see anybody get hurt. Grounding, you can get hurt. I've been in a transmitter building with it bouncing around inside when lightning outside. It's not fun. Your hair stand up on your arms. It really makes you nervous. But anyways, there's 2 more parts. One's a 9-minute one, one's a 20-minute one, whatever. I'd like to finish them off because I really think it's that important that we do the grounding and bonding. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You can even bury your old junk car out there fast with it.
I'll be on the phone. Anybody have any questions about grounding?
What effect does Florida's soil have on grounding?
Is an 8-foot rod effective at sandy soil?
I know years ago, right across from, it used to be the Catholic Church, there's a guy up there back in the CD days. We put in the ground rod and his son-in-law worked Florida Power and he come out and made it. It's a 250 foot of ground rod. Luckily Florida Power got
I will tell you, that's about what's out at the Indian Lake, the state's tower site for the county 800 system and the DMR feeder. That's how deep the ground is.
I think it was 770 is what they tried to get,
Yep.
at least, we had on that thing, but it took,
Mr. Howard, you were gonna say something about the sand?
most of the part is sand.
Yeah.
It's not very,
It will crystallize if you get hit by lightning.
well, I showed, Mike, that these actually came out of Fort Meade and they were fossilized. And when lightning hits a tree, like a pine tree, the pine tree is very conductive and it follows the root system out. And that root system is sort of like, it's glass where that lightning went through. It turned the sand to glass and then it is a non-conductor.
The first thing to do in the house is to take your bonding wire from your station to either a number 6 wire or equivalent to the central ground that comes into your house from Tico.
Mine's 100 feet away.
If it's 100 feet, then you want thicker wire.
Yep. Right before you.
Pipe works good too.
But
Black pipe.
The important thing though is that let's try to
Grounding.
get a single point ground.
Right.
Because even if you got 200 feet of ground rod in it, that's still gonna go up near several hundred volts, several thousand volts. And but if everything goes up there together, there's no difference, then you're good. But if you've got one ground here and one ground there,
Then you gotta hold it.
so the single point is what he was working with. Single point.
Wonder how much more smog got conducted by dirt, that wet dirt out there on the lake up is.
Well, look, the engineer that put the stuff out at Indian Lake, 'cause I went out there because it was interesting to watch it put it down. And he said, we are down now past the aquifer. We're in the sub aquifer. And he said, we still don't have the homage that we require.
And, but the ohmage isn't the only thing, it's the inductance, that's the.
Yeah.
That rod has got some inductors, and if it's several hundred feet long, it's going to be like an open circuit to heat.
All right, that's all I've got.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Lightning have RF current at a frequency all across the zone.
You done?
It would happen.
Thanks, everybody.
Current, all of the same.